Hello, crafty friends. Welcome to my craft table. I'm making up a bundle of baby cards in today's video. I didn't have any supplies for this, so I had to do a little bit of online shopping, but I found a really cute collection. So let me show you a few things that I picked up from scrapbook.com. This collection is called Our Baby, and it has a very neutral color palette to it. So these would be good for a boy or a girl. Here is the stamp set that I chose, and I love this one because it has cute little images and tons of sentiments that I can use on my cards. Here is the coordinating pattern paper. It is 6 by 6, and it is double-sided. There are a lot of cut-aparts in this pack that I'm going to use on my cards today. You get 2 of each design, and it's a very heavyweight pattern paper. I probably could have gotten away with just buying this pattern paper because there are so many sentiments and cute little cut-aparts in it, but I wanted to have all the cute things. Next, I have their chipboard accents. There are tons of really cute images, and I like the chipboard because it does add some dimension to your cards. And last, I got their ephemera pack. Let me pull this out so you can see what these look like. So there are some blank frames that would be fun to stamp some sentiments in. And just lots of different shapes and sentiments and images. Let me just walk you through these. But I was so surprised that I didn't have anything in my stash that was baby related. And I don't think I've ever made a baby card on my YouTube channel. So this is a first for me. But I had so much fun putting these cards together. I'm going to create 7 cards using all of these cute crafty goodies. And baby cards are really nice to have in your stash so you can just pull them out when you need one, especially cards that are more neutral. They did have some really cute collections for either a girl or a boy, and they were called Our Baby Girl and Our Baby Boy. And I was tempted to get those two, but I thought I'd just start with this little collection here. So for each card, I'm going to try to use one of each element that I purchased. So 1 piece of pattern paper, chipboard stickers, ephemera, and stamps. At least 1, it can be more. On card number 1, I'm going to use this really cute piece of mustard pattern paper. On the back, it has cut-aparts that say 9 months, 10 months, and so forth. But I'm not going to be using those, so I wasn't worried about cutting into this piece of pattern paper. Sometimes it's so hard to choose because both sides of the pattern paper are so cute. So I cut out the mustard pattern paper with one of my postage edge dies, and I'm going to be stamping out these cute little bears all over this paper. I'm going to rotate the acrylic block for each stamping just to make it look like my own designed pattern paper. This little bear stamp is so cute. I'm also going to stamp out this heart image, and these are really nice photopolymer stamps. Really good quality. I'm going to add a few more of the bears just coming off the edge of the page so it looks like the pattern continues on. And then I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink, so I have to be careful not to smudge it because it does take a little bit longer to dry. Now I can glue this down onto a piece of Dahlia Pink cardstock. This Dahlia Pink is from Spellbinders. It's one of my favorite pinks. And I'll center that on the pink cardstock. The oval ephemera piece says, "I can barely wait to meet you," and it's the same bear that I stamped out on the mustard paper. These 2 strips of paper are from the pattern paper pack. I'm going to glue them together, and I'll glue this down across the middle of the card. This will be a cute accent to use behind the oval. I'll just glue that in place, and then I'm going to flip it over and cut off the overhang. For the oval piece, I decided to pop that up with some foam strips. And I'll adhere this to the right side of the card, just over the strips of paper. Next, I'm going to glue down one of the chipboard accents, and I thought these were stickers. And I've about pulled apart one of the pieces trying to find the adhesive on the back. But these are just chipboard. You're going to have to use your own adhesive to attach these. I chose this green heart, put down at the bottom of my sentiment. It matches well with everything else going on with this card. And I'm also going to use another ephemera piece. And I'm going to pop this up as well with a few foam squares. This one says New in Town. Now I can attach this to my white card base. Sorry, the camera keeps going in and out of focus there for a second. And last, I'm going to add a few peach opalescent sequins on this, just around the sentiment at the top. These really matched well with the mustard pattern paper. And here's a close-up look at card number 1. I also decorated the insides of all of my cards today. I didn't want to waste any of the ephemera, so I did a few stamps and an ephemera piece. For card number 2, I'm using this really adorable piece of plaid pattern paper. The paper behind it is a pretty yellow cardstock called beeswax. And then I cut out a few more circles to put behind this ephemera piece. So the ephemera says Bundle of Joy, and I'm matting it with a black and an orange pattern paper. I used the circle dies in my stash to cut these out. I'm using another piece of pattern paper, and this one was another cut apart. It has these cute rainbows and suns on it. I'll glue this down diagonally. The circle sentiment, I'm just going to glue down flat because it's pretty thick with the 3 layers of paper to it. And then I really love this piece of ephemera that says Giggles and Grins. I added another piece of scrap paper behind it just so that it would be the same height as that strip of pattern paper. And I'll put that down diagonally as well. And then I can flip it over and cut off the overhang on this. I like that this pack of pattern paper came with 2 of each pattern because it's so hard sometimes to waste the opposite side of the pattern paper because they were all so cute. The chipboard accent for this card is going to be this little bow. I'll glue that down at the top of the sentiment. Before I attach this panel to my card base, I'm going to stamp out a sentiment on the inside. And this one says, Welcome, little one. There's a really cute rainbow stamp that I'm going to ink up with some cheeky pink ink and stamp over the sentiment. And now I can attach my main panel onto this card base. The last touch will be some more sequins, and the sequins I chose were some pretty silver sequins. Let me give you a close-up look at card number 2. I really like this sentiment at the bottom that says Giggles and Grins. And then here again is what I stamped out on the inside of the card. For card number 3, I'm using one of the pattern paper cut-aparts, but I'm going to cut it out using one of my arch dies. I'll tape this in place so it doesn't shift. And then I'm going to take this and cut it out off camera. But here it is, all ready to go. I had a little bit of tape left at the top. I'll just peel that off. I'm using some waterfall cardstock, and I happen to have this arch die already cut out. It's been in my stash for a while, but I thought that would back the arch sentiment perfectly. I'm going to add one more layer to this with some latte brown cardstock. And then I can glue it to the waterfall blue cardstock. I'm using some tape runner to attach this. I go back and forth between my tape runner and my liquid glue. There's no rhyme or reason to this. The only time I really avoid using liquid glue is when my paper is really thin or the ephemera pieces are thin. I'm going to round the top corners of this piece of pattern paper. And I'll do the same thing to my card base, just the top two corners. This corner chomper is from Spellbinders, and I really love it, but it didn't go through the card base. My paper, however, is 120 pound, and then there's 2 layers of it. So I'm just going to pull in my scissors to finish off the job. The tool scored the lines into the paper, so I knew exactly where to cut. I'll use some tape runner to attach my pattern paper to the card base. I love the look of the rounded corners at the top of this card. This sort of mimics the arches on the main panel. I'll attach the arch panel, but I still need to add one of the chipboard accents. And for this, I chose another little heart. Little pink one, and I'll put it right here by the sentiment. I added a fishtail ephemera piece at the top of the card, and now for the inside, I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says, "Hello, baby." And as you can see, there's another ephemera piece at the bottom corner. And last, I'll add a few enameled dots around the panel. And I'm going to call this card done. I love the light browns and the blues of this card. I think this is a great card for either a boy or a girl. Let me give you a close-up look, as well as another look at the inside. For my next card, I'm using one of the cut-aparts from the pattern paper, and I'm stamping out the sentiment that says "Little Love" on it. You could stamp it out with regular black dye ink, but again, I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black, so I do have to be careful not to smear it before it dries. I'm going to use some green lined paper, and I'll attach this to a piece of Dune cardstock. I love the Dune cardstock because it's like a really pale craft paper. For my sentiment piece, I am going to glue that onto another rectangle that's a little bit larger. This just adds more interest to the card and adds a little matting behind the sentiment. There's a little flower bouquet printed on the bottom left side of my sentiment piece, and so I thought I'd bring in the chipboard sticker that complements that, and I'll glue that to the right. And then I'm going to do some really simple embellishments on this card. I'm just going to use 2 black enamel dots right up at the top left corner. I think that the black enamel dots kind of brings in the black sentiment of the card. They're the only 2 black things on the front of this panel. And here's a close-up look. On the inside, I used another ephemera piece and some leftover pattern paper. That sentiment says, "Wonderful You." For my next card, I'm using another cut-apart, and this is a rather large sentiment piece, and I wanted to add a little more interest to it, so I'm bringing in some cantaloupe ink, and I'm just going to ink or blend on the corners of this piece. And then I'm going to mat this sentiment panel with another piece of pattern paper, and it's just a really pretty pale green. You can see it there at the top left. I cut that out to be a little bit larger than my sentiment rectangle. I use some tape runner for this. I love the pattern paper that has the rainbows on it, so I'm going to use that behind this rectangle piece. But before I put that on, I wanted to add some more of the soft cantaloupe ink around the sides of my card base. So I taped it off up at the top so I don't get ink on the back of my card base. I'm just gently blending on some more cantaloupe ink. And then my card base will match perfectly with my sentiment rectangle. Ink is fabulous to use when you don't have the color of cardstock that you want to use on a certain project. You can just make your own colored cardstock this way. So let's peel off the mint tape, and there's a nice sharp line at the top of this card base. Now I can put everything together. I'll go ahead and attach the rainbow cardstock. I cut this piece of pattern paper down to 5 1/4 by 4. So it's a little bit smaller than the card base, but this way you can see the pretty orange ink around the edges. Now for the main panel. This time I'm just using a little bit of liquid glue to put this in place. And then as for the chipboard accent for this card, I chose a really cute banner. It's a really big accent piece, but I'm going to make it fit within the confines of this card. So I'll add some liquid glue to the back of this. And I'm going to angle it so that it fits within the parameters of this card. I don't want to have to cut off any overhang on this chipboard accent. For an embellishment, I'm going to use the peach opalescent sequins again. They look really pretty with the cantaloupe ink. And here's a close-up look. And then on the inside of the card, I used more pattern paper. And I stamped out the sentiment that says "Little Love" and used another ephemera piece. I just absolutely had to use this ephemera piece that says "Wild thing, you make my heart sing," as all of these cute little animals standing in a row. I'm going to soften the edges with a larger corner chomper. This is a 1/2 inch chomp. The one I used before was a 1/4 of an inch. But I'm going to add ink again to this ephemera piece. I'll start with some green. And this is some sage green. This is a really fun way to kind of zhuzh up your designs. Let's do the opposite corner. And then I liked the cantaloupe ink so well that I thought I'd come in with a little more of the cantaloupe ink on the other 2 corners. Unfortunately, I decided to do that after I had attached it to the card, but I'll show you that in just a minute. So I love this brown polka dot pattern paper. I'll attach another piece of this lovely plaid pattern paper. And now I can attach the sentiment. The arrow that you see up at the top of this card is one of the chipboard accents, and I colored it in with some Copic markers. So to add the cantaloupe ink, I just put a piece of scrap paper under the corner so that I didn't get ink on the brown pattern paper. I'll do the same with the opposite corner. I'll just kind of slide that in and blend on some more cantaloupe. I like the look of the 2 colors on this piece. The chipboard sticker I'll attach with some liquid glue just above the sentiment. And then I thought it needed something more. It was just looking a little too plain. So I am going to chomp the bottom 2 corners this time. It's fun to do this for baby cards. It just really softens up the look. And of course, I'll do the same thing with my card base. And then I can attach this to the card base. I attached a black and white twine bow at the top. I'll tie the bow at the left side. This added a lot too. And then to bring in more of the black twine and the black sentiment, I added 2 black enamel dots to the right of this card. And here's a peek at the inside. So both of those images are stamped, and then the frame is an ephemera piece. On the last card, I'm going back to this cute mustard pattern paper. I'm going to cut it out into a shape. I'll take it off camera and cut that out. This is a mirrored arch label from Spellbinders. I am going to cut out another one to mat this first one with some orangey pattern paper. I'll peel off the tape I used to hold the die in place. And then I'm going to be using a lot of chipboard stickers on this card. I had to stop and create a few card bases because I ran out. But I wanted to show you a new cardstock that I'm using to create my card bases. It's called Accent Opaque Digital, and it's 120-pound cardstock, so it makes a really stiff card base. I usually use Nina Solar White 110-pound for my card bases. That was just getting a little too expensive. This cardstock that I'm using is cheaper. I wanted to give this a try. I'm using my Spellbinders paper trimmer to cut down this cardstock the long way at 4 1/4. And then this paper trimmer is really nice because you can score it as well. I like to reinforce that fold with my bone folder. Next, I'm picking out a piece of colored cardstock to go behind my pattern paper. I really liked the look of this dark green. It's called Fern Green behind the pattern paper. And now I can start putting this card together. I'll glue my 2 mirrored arch label die cuts together. And now for the pattern paper that will go behind this. This pattern paper is cute because it has lots of little onesies and baby clothes and ducks and hats and just a myriad of cute little baby things. And then I can attach this to my card base. I chose a bunch of chipboard accents to put on the front of this card, and they coordinate really well with what's on the pattern paper behind it. But first, for this sentiment, I'm going to glue that down first to make sure I have room for that. And then I have a little baby jumper. This next piece is a little footprint, and then a shooting star. They just kind of all tuck in well together. And then last, I have another heart that I'll put at the side here. This is where I decide to peel off my main panel from the card base because I wanted to put a bow behind this panel. Nothing goes better with baby cards than cute bows on the fronts of your cards. I'm going to add a little more dot liner just to make sure this ribbon stays in place. This is some ribbon I've had in my stash for a long time. It's from Pink and Maine. It matched really well with the peach tones on this card. Cut down the ribbon and then just press this end into the tape runner as well. I'm just trying to make sure that this is straight up and down. I'll add more tape runner behind the ribbon, and then I can put this back on my card base. I really love that the Spellbinders tape runner allowed me to pull off this panel without ripping any paper. I'm going to attach a big bow at the top of this card next, and I want it to be relatively flat. Because this is ribbon that will fray, I'm going to pull out my lighter and melt the ends of this ribbon. You don't want to get too close with this or it will burn, but just close enough so it melts the ribbon together and it won't fray. Now I can glue on my main panel. And then for the ribbon, I have a hard time keeping these attached to my cards, so I'm going to use a Glue Runner permanent dot. And these are really large dots on this glue runner. So it's going to fit this bow perfectly, and it's really sticky. I'll add a little bit of glue just to reinforce that. And this is what the glue runner looks like. I picked this up at Michael's. Now I can attach my bow at the top. And here's a close-up look at card number 7. If you enjoyed today's card video, I hope you'll consider clicking on that thumbs up button. And I'll be back really soon with more inspiration. You can find all of the links to these products listed in the description box if you want to check them out. Again, the products that I used are from the collection by Echo Park called Our Baby. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful crafty day. Bye.